friends, welcome to Knits and Stories. My name's Melissa and this is my corner of the internet where I'm going to talk about knitting and books, and hopefully they're just going to combine together and create a wonderful little escape for each of us. So whether you're here for the knitting inspiration or a great book recommendation, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Today, I'm going to be focusing on everything that I knit during 2024. So grab your favorite drink, grab your nearest project, and let's dive into it. I'm really excited to share with you today what I've been knitting. The first project that I worked on in 2024 was the Willow hat pattern by Tiff Nealon. This was a quick little test knit that I did for her following a test knit for her Willow's sweater. And so I used one skein of Nora's Silk Garden Solo in color number 1, which is called Amatama. This was knit on a US 8. I just followed this really easy, lovely lace pattern that really was inspired by willow branches. It is a cute little hat that really is rather warm, maybe not on the snowiest of days like we're having today, but I do really like it, and I topped it with a Toft alpaca snap pom-pom so that I could take the pom-pom off to hand wash it without having to do a whole lot of refluffing of the pom-pom. The next item that I knit during 2024 was the Springline tee by Samantha Guerin. If you're not familiar with Samantha Guerin, she puts out a new spring summer top every season, and they are just delightful patterns that are typically really beginner friendly. So the one that I knit last year was the Springline tee. As you can see, it has these beautiful lace detail panels up and down either side. They are also on the back. For this, I used Rising Tide Fiber Company in the Suffolk fingering. Now that is a 50% baby alpaca, 25% silk, and 25% linen yarn. So a really drapey, delicate type of fiber that's really quite breathable during the spring and the summer. This was knit on a US 3.25 millimeter needle. The construction really is a drop shoulder that is worked from the top down. It does have a bit of a cropped nature. I do believe I lengthened mine just ever so slightly. I'll try and insert a picture here so you can see what it looks like on when I've worn it with just some cute linen pants. Project that I have to share with you is the Market Henley. This is a pattern by Claire Jackson. This was a test knit that I did with her. It was the first time I had ever participated in a test knit with her. I really liked the way that she ran the test knit. It was a very lengthy window of time. One, because we were knitting long sleeve fingering weight sweaters, but she has such a size inclusive pattern that she does really focus on making sure everyone has time to finish. For me, I knit mine in Rising Tide Garrett fingering, which is 100% Highland Peruvian fingering. It is a non-superwash yarn, so mine does have very much a little bit of a more rustic feel to it. I knit this on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle. This design has a beautiful waffle stitch texture that was really easy to memorize. It's worked top down And again, it has a drop shoulder construction, which is a really lovely fit. The next garment that I knit in 2024 is the collected slipover by Tiff Nealon. And for this pattern called for three skeins of three different colors of spin cycle. I don't personally own any spin cycle in my stash, so I was a little bit more creative. Instead, I chose for my main color this cream. I used Barocco's Remix in the color cream. If you're not familiar with Remix, it is a recycled yarn. It is cotton, nylon, silk, linen, and some acrylic in there, but it is a recycled fabric. It retails, I think, for about $13 a ball. For the spin cycle that I substituted, I actually used Noro Akari. That's one of those giant balls of Noro. I think it retails for around $40. I used color number 5, which is Hammerum. Noro Akari is a silk, cotton, rayon. There is a touch of mohair, wool, and nylon in it. So for me, the Akari, instead of changing and having 3 different colors of spin cycle, my Akari did all the work for me, which I think it turned out really beautiful. This is a top-down modified drop shoulder construction, and it uses what's called interrupted garter to create the textured effect. I'll try and input a photo now so you can see what it looks like on. For me, I got a lot of wear out of this in the summertime. Because of all the plant fibers in here, it really it was a really breathable fabric for me, and it just paired really nicely with loose, baggier, cotton linen pants. The next sweater I knit was a test knit for Tiff Nealon, so same designer as the previous one. Tiff's version is I think it's a black wool, and then wool, she has solid colors in her colorwork yoke. For me, we needed such small yardage and just a few different colors that I opted to use a more breathable fabric, knowing that we have high humidity here in Maryland. So this way I chose my cotton wool DK. So this is 50% cotton, 50% wool. And then I did stick with 100% wool for my colorwork because it's just primarily in the yoke. And I opted to use a 5 skein minis. Mine were DK weight minis. You could certainly use fingering and just hold it double, and you'd have plenty for all of your color work. Now, I did use different color on my hem, my sleeves, and then this beautiful herringbone collar. This was knit on a US 7 4.5 millimeter. It is very much a traditional top-down circular yoke, but again, it has this beautiful herringbone collar, which was the first time I had ever knit one, and it's just such a lovely detail. And again, I used variegated or speckled minis, so my color work is not very harsh. My sweater obviously has much more of a watercolor appearance to it, but again, this made it a more breathable piece. It also made it really great for transitional weather, so I can wear this and get use out of it during 3 out of the 4 seasons here in Maryland. The next piece I knit was the Anker summer shirt by Petite Knit. Now, I know lots of people have knit this before. I knit mine because I was teaching a beginner t-shirt class at my local yarn shop, and I chose the Anker because, quite frankly, it's such a great pattern that is fairly size inclusive. That really allows me to teach people who have never made a garment before just some of the basic construction of a top-down circular with a little bit of raglans thrown in there. It's flattering on a variety of body shapes, and it can be a little forgiving since there's no short row shaping. So there's that as well. So it allows newer knitters to get really confident about being able to knit a garment without having to focus on some of those details that they can learn later on with their next garment project. For this, I used Lang's Oceana yarn. I knit mine on a US 5. The Oceana yarn is 70% cotton and 30% sea cell. I don't remember what color this was. Obviously it's a really bright, bold pink. It was a color I was really drawn to, and I talked my mother into buying a sweater quantity of it to make an Anker, and then I opted to buy a sweater quantity of it too in order to make myself one as well. The next item I knit is another Tiff Nealon pattern. If you haven't figured out by now, I do really enjoy Tiff's patterns. I think she runs really well done tests. If you ever have the pleasure of test knitting for her, she does a really great job. I think she has easy to follow patterns. Even testing for her, they're very clean. They've been tech edited. They've really scrubbed them to make them so that we're really having to do very little work as a test knitter. I knit for her, let's see, yeah, this is the front. This is the Nature's Cozy shawl. And so I used 2 skeins of Rising Tides Calvert DK, which is just 100% superwash merino. I used my Boys of Fall colorway. It's just a pale neutral color with some flecks of like burgundy, blue. I think there might be a little yellow in there. And then this pattern called for 1 skein of mohair and 1 skein of figuring. For me, I opted to use 2 different mohairs instead of that fingering. So in each section, you're carrying two strands of the mohair along with the DK weight yarn. So you're knitting with 3 strands at a time. It wasn't too terrible. I opted to use Toes in the Sand, which again is just a really neutral sand color, and then my Delicate color, which is more of a mauvier pink, and it made very much a more neutral colored shawl. I knit this on a US 10, so this went really quickly. This is a really easy to follow pattern, and it has a lot of texture in it. So as you're starting at one end and you're going along, the stitch pattern is changing enough that you're never getting, I don't want to say complacent, but you're never getting overly comfortable with every section, because just when you're starting to tire out from one texture, you move on to another. So I think this is a great beginner-friendly shawl pattern because you'll learn a lot of, or a few different textures. You don't have to carry mohair if you don't want to. I think you could substitute 2 fingerings for the mohair. You could certainly carry something like cashmere or a Surrey alpaca along with it instead. The next sweater that I finished is the Salty Air sweater by Samantha Guerin. So another really great pattern designer, really cleanly written patterns. I have knit the Salty Air tee. It's a tee that I wear constantly during the summer. So when she released her sweater pattern, I opted and jumped right on this. I actually used this pattern for a sort of a beginner knitting class. I had students who had knit the Anker and they wanted something a little more elaborate, so this way they learned German short rows, they learned how to read a chart for the lace work. It is written out, not just charted. I used my Rising Tide Calvert DK in Boysenberry. I knit mine on a US 6. I think the pattern calls for 7, but mine is knit on a US 6. Again, the pattern is charted if you're a chart reader, or it is written out. You do have a couple sleeve options, I think, in the pattern. You can do a traditional tapered sleeve. You can do a balloon sleeve. Really great pattern. Again, adventurous beginner could definitely tackle this. The next pattern that I wanted to share with you is what's called the Twist and Tweed shawl. This is a design by Lamb Kid, so it's free. I used my Rising Tide tweed fingering in Celestial Tidings and in Elderberry Elixir. And then in the center, I carried 2 Surrey alpacas together. She put them on the map, and Frozen Fractal held together. This was knit on a US 6. It's also primarily done in garter. The center section is stockinette, but all of the tweed is garter stitch. And so you start at one end and you literally knit for a really long panel with increasing as you go. You get to the stockinette portion. It does have, as you can see, a bit of a V. And then you have a tinier garter section here. I think this is really great TV knitting. If you are like me and you're a huge fan of tweed, I think between the tweed and the garter, you get a lot of texture and interest in such simple knitting. Carrying the 2 colors of Surrey alpaca really creates interest. Again, this is the part that's closest to my neck when I wear it, so this is incredibly soft and cozy for me. And then you knit with a 3rd color. I think if you're not interested in all the color changes, you could certainly do this in a more monochromatic look, where maybe you certainly don't use the whole end of this, so I could see that you could probably get away with using 1 color of tweed on either side, and then you could do something, again, a little more monochromatic in the middle if you're not looking for something quite as bold as, say, the navy and berry color. The next shawl that I knit was also by Lamb Kid, so another free pattern. This one is a DK weight pattern, and it's knit on US size 10. So it goes incredibly fast. For me, I used, instead of a regular DK skein, I chose to use a DK boucle yarn to just add a little bit of fun. And this is my Lyric Love colorway. And then I also just carried a strand of Surrey alpaca in my colorway Shiplap. It's just a natural base looking Surrey, and it just helped to kind of water down that variegated or speckled colorway. This is, again, garter, super easy, knit on really big needles. Again, this is one where I think we started, yeah, mine's upside down. Get it together, Melissa. You start at one end and you are slowly, you can see this is not a deep shawl, so you are slowly increasing. It's in garter, big needles, so this goes incredibly fast. I think it's perfect for when you want to watch television, you want to socialize, whatever. You can totally get away with conversing and being multitasking. That's the word I'm looking for. Multitasking. I did, like many of you, start a pair of Advent socks. I actually started 2 pairs, and I quickly kind of fizzled out on them. I just lost interest. I was looking for something that would go faster. I do really love socks, and so I am bringing in DK weight sock sets, and so I opted to make samples of each colorway for my new mobile truck. That's what we're sitting in. So I did knit pairs of DK weight socks in various samples. I used my Talbot DK, their sock sets. This one is Albatross, which was a fan favorite from my Taylor Swift Tortured Poets Advent. So it is now, this color is now part of my standard lineup. This is the Boys of Fall colorway we used in that Nature's Cozy shawl. So as you can see, it's got those burgundies, blues, yellows, really pretty. And then this one, I have what's called the Novel Women's Society. Every month I have chosen what is considered a classic novel or renowned novel for its take on women's experiences, whether that's the woman who wrote it or the female protagonist in the book. And so I started towards the end of last year, and this was the Lost in the Library colorway. And again, I needed samples for the truck, and these were that quick knit that I was seeking, but still something really handy, portable. So 3 pairs of DK weight socks. I used the Crazy Sock Ladies Vanilla DK pattern on US 9 circulars, 9-inch circulars on a US 3. So that's it for today's. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. For those of you that have been around and supported me for a long time, either through reading my weekly newsletter called Tuesday Tidbits, or maybe you found me at a fiber festival, or maybe you've just been a long-time supporter through my local yarn shop, Knits and Pieces. Your continued support means the world to me. Thank you so much for joining me here in this space. Until next time, keep knitting, keep reading, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back.